Alright, well, my editing skills are crap. But can the same thing be said about Alien Arrival? Stick around and find out. Clack, 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 clack. Clack, 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 clack. I don't have enough hands to hold them all up at once. Anybody get the reference? It's a deep cut and a poor performance of it, but I'll give you some kind of digital thumbs up in the comments below if you get the reference and can name what movie I was trying to evoke the opening titles for. Anyway, okay, I'm Peter Franzen from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Alien Arrival. This is originally titled Arrowhead, and the IMDb synopsis provided by the writer of the film reads, Arrowhead, Alien Arrival, is a tale of survival set amongst the distant stars. Kai is a prisoner of war caught between two armies that he doesn't believe in. When offered an opportunity for freedom, Kai sets out on one last rescue mission, only to become stranded on a desert moon when his ship, the Arrowhead, crash lands. Kai has to learn to survive when he discovers a new life form that will challenge his very body and soul. Alright, I would describe this movie as a sci-fi action/survival horror movie that at times seems to be going for character drama. The story moved along at a fine pace for me, but it didn't give the time that I wanted to in order for me to invest in like the main character of Kai. It didn't give enough time to some of those character moments the way I think it was wanting me to invest in a way that either the editing or the script just weren't giving me quite what I wanted, and the performances too. I'll talk about that in a little bit. There were also two key moments where I think I was supposed to care about characters, and the moment just wasn't earned for me. I wasn't primed to care in the moments I think I was supposed to. The first of those two involved backstory between two characters that seemed to suddenly be introduced to provide a connecting point between two characters. You know, it felt like the writer wanted them to have this moment of connection, but realized in the writing process, he's like, you know, I haven't really built any connection between these guys to make this moment of connection that I want to have happen here work. So really quickly, before that moment of connection, I'll have one of the characters say, hey, remember how we knew each other when I was a kid? I know that hasn't come up, and there hasn't really been a reference to that up to this point, but, you know, remember how we've kind of both known each other, and we've probably been thinking about that this whole time, the fact that we used to know each other. Hey, we're connected. Let's have a moment of connection now. That's what it kind of felt like to me. The second moment was near the end, and kind of depended upon Kai caring about another character enough that he would care if they lived or died. And they kind of seem to be playing on this, like, oh, I'm going to do this to this person that you care about, and da-da-da-da-da, and, you know, but his connection to that character that was being threatened wasn't established enough for me to buy into that moment. Maybe it'll be different for other people, but that's just kind of what it felt like to me. Aside from falling short for me in the character department, the story did take a few interesting turns, some of which were hard to follow conceptually. There was one moment where, because of like the way they presented it in terms of editing, I was like, oh, they did an editing thing there that kind of like tricked me as a viewer, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with, you know, kind of like having editing things happen in kind of like non-sequential order, or, you know, kind of mess with time a little bit in terms of how they're editing the story, so that, you know, I kind of get confused for a moment. So I actually don't mind that a lot of the times. It gives me, as it did with this movie, something to kind of think about, like, oh, what happened here? I'm confused and stuff, you know. So there were, because of that, you know, and a few other. One thing that was interesting is I wasn't quite sure what kind of movie this was. As I said, it's got some action elements. It's got some here I am surviving all by myself in a hostile environment, you know, so it's got kind of some of that survival feel. It's got some of that being hunted by a strange alien I don't understand. It's got some body horror going on. It's got a little bit of character self-discovery, I think, more that's intended than what I actually got from it. So just trying to figure out exactly what kind of animal this movie was, and how it didn't quite fit really firmly into any one story type, I think that alone kind of made it a little bit interesting to me to kind of follow and figure out, okay, where are they going with this, you know? So it did give me a reason to stay engaged. I'm also a fan of weird alien body horror. The gorier, the better. Which is a key element in this story, so that helped keep me engaged as well. As far as like the cast, there were no familiar faces here for me. This is a movie that was shot, as far as I can tell, in Australia, so no surprise there that I wouldn't recognize really anybody. The actor playing Kai worked for me early on, before they were really going for kind of some of the character stuff with him that they were going into later on. I gotta say, actually, the opening scene of this movie really kind of stands out to me. It was really engaging. You know, I saw that this character was willing to commit like a desperate act in order to get what he wanted in the moment, and it was really striking kind of opening scene. And I wish there would have been a little bit more of those kinds of acts of desperation, and in the rest of the movie. But anyway, as I said, the actor playing Kai worked for me early on, but when the story tried to spend time alone with him, there was a little bit of that. What's that Tom Hanks movie where he's on an island? I can't remember what it's called. Survivor? It's not called Survivor, is it? I don't know what that's called. Wilson? But there's a little bit of that kind of thing for a little while in this movie. That's not what the main thrust of the movie is, but there's a significant amount of that in like the halfway point in the end. Well, I can't remember exactly where it happens. Anyway, there's some of that kind of like Survivor type stuff going on. And when the story tried to spend time alone with Kai, I didn't feel like the actor's performance had enough interesting variety or subtext to kind of flesh him out and help me to care about him. The actor also has an accent that seemed to pop in and out inconsistently in his performance, which was kind of distracting to me. I kind of wanted to say, dude, if you got like an accent going on that you're having trouble hiding, I would rather just come out with it. Just let me hear the whole thing, and you can make a passing note like they do, or like they used to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, saying, yeah, he's a cop from Austria, and he just became a citizen, Whatever. That seems like an easy thing to kind of just add into the script as a side note or whatever. And then it actually helps add some flavor and a little bit of interest. I'd rather that, much rather that, than you tried to kind of hide an accent, which what it seemed like. Maybe it was just a light accent. Maybe he wasn't trying to hide anything, but it did, I think, feel just a little bit inconsistent to me. Anyway, there was something going on there with his speech that was a little bit distracting to me. My impression, I could be wrong, but my impression is that this actor was cast more for his look and physique than for his range as an actor. Now, he's got the look and body type for a cold action hero, and as I said early on, and later on in the movie as well, there were definitely some moments where it was like, yeah, he is cast well for this kind of moment, But for a character, as was the case in this story, with personal stakes, like he was trying to save his father, and he was having some significant, I think some intended anyway, realizations about himself and the alliances that he's chosen in his life. And so for those kinds of things, this actor I don't think was the right fit for me. As far as stunts and visuals go, I like the visual design of this movie. Despite its low budget, it had a dirty, bulky kind of look to the spaceships and the sci-fi tech that I really connected with me. The makeup and the costuming blended right in and created a nice grounded visual setting for the story that I really liked. There was still plenty of cheap CG, but almost all CG looks glaringly fake to my cursed eyes, so that wasn't a big problem for me. I appreciated them switching between practical and CG effects to create the main alien in this movie. But a few times near the end, they showed too much of the practical version of the alien, Now, I'm the first one that'll get in line and say, I prefer practical over CG. I think I will take... I don't know, it's all relative. What I want to say is that I'll take bad practical effects over bad CG, but I'm sure there would be exceptions to that. But what I want is for both of them to be good. And in this case, I felt like they needed to hide the monster more. Sometimes in movies they'll show too much of that practical monster, whether it's the shark in Jaws or whatever else. They show too much of it. It works better when it's obscured. And I think there were some moments in the last fourth of this movie where they could have improved the scenes by obscuring that monster, that alien, a little bit more. All right, so I always try to ask myself, is there anything of worthwhile moral, philosophical, spiritual significance significance going on in the themes of this thing I'm taking in that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation. I don't think this movie was trying to say much, if anything at all, but one phrase that was used twice in the movie and stuck out to me even the first time it was used was, sometimes you have to break something to make it better. This seemed, at least in part, to maybe be the intended arc for the hero, that he needed to be broken down in some way in order to have some positive change be brought about in who he is and how he views the world. And although I don't think the script or the performance really sold that theme well for me, I do appreciate the reality of that message. There are times when you and I become so stubborn in holding on to doing or thinking about things our way that God will then allow us even use the sinful behaviors of other people and the broken circumstances of the world that we live in. He'll use those things and allow us to go through some things that that break us in either a large or a small way. And that's not to say that our stubbornness is the reason every time or most times or whatever that we experience difficulty, but difficulty and suffering, I think, can be good times to at least take stock and at least be open and ask God, what, if anything, are you wanting my attention about here that maybe I haven't been attentive to or haven't made myself available to consider before? What, if anything, have I hardened myself against too much to accept? All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I would go back in time and say, hey, Pater, skip this one. It's worth redboxing or watching for free if you want to have something on while you fold the laundry or play a video game, but on its own, it's lacking too much in some key areas for it to be worth your full attention. Now, this one was made in Australia. It has no MPAA rating, but it probably sits in the rated R spectrum for violence, gore, and language. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a Spirit Blade Insider, which grants you exclusive monthly access to behind-the-scenes goodies and other content. For more info, visit our About page at spiritblade.com, where you'll also find our audio dramas and a weekly podcast. There's also a big sale going on on our audio dramas right now at spiritblade.com. And finally, there's a ton more content and community over at christiangeekcentral.com. I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.